Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership at TEPSA. And each episode, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another, and bring them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to share some of yours. I'm thrilled for this episode to have my friend and special guest, David Domena, on with me. David, tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Hey, how's it going, Todd? Thank you so much for having me today. I'm a fifth-year teacher here in Southern California. I teach second grade. Actually, this year, with all this craziness going on, my daughter was in my class, so that was interesting. And now we're going through all this Corona stuff, but second career as a teacher, and I love it.
Yeah, and that's always where I love to start with these conversations is, like you just said, this was not your first career choice. So when you were growing up, what did you think you were going to be? What did you end up doing? And then how did that get you to education?
Oh, man, when I was a kid, I thought I was going to be a basketball player. I thought I was going to be in the NBA. Obviously, that didn't work out when I didn't cross the feet. So, no, I started off as a warehouse manager coming out of college. So in college, I took the longer route, 5 years, 3 different colleges, and took all the classes with the cute girls in them. So followed the cute girls around through all the classes, psychology, and ended up in communications. And then just took my time, I guess, making it over to the education realm. I was a warehouse manager, like I said, for a while, and the money was amazing. You know, the money paid really well. I wanted to start my family, so that helped out a lot. But I ended up being a manager for a solar company. And when they pulled their solar panels out, then they didn't need a manager anymore. So I was laid off at the time and looking for work. And one of my buddies was a teacher from high school, and he told me to try out substitute teaching. And I had a lot of people tell me that in my past, you should be a teacher and try it out. And I just really didn't think I had the patience for it. So,
right.
Yeah, it takes mounds and mounds of patience. So I knew that, but I just, I wanted to try it out and fell in love with it. Just with substitute teaching, fell in love with it and had some really good experiences and ended up getting an award at the end of one of my years sub teaching. Nice. And went to my car right there on the way home and didn't even start the car. I just called my wife and I told her, this is something I want to do. And she was on board. She knew it was going to take, with the year off with student teaching and going back for my credential and all that stuff. But she supported me 100%. So it's worked out really well.
Well, and you've been for 5 years now. So what would you say is one of the biggest lessons you've learned since becoming a teacher?
Oh man! So my first year, I've been blessed, super blessed. My first interview, I got the job. So brought me in without any experience, took a chance on me, and he's a really good friend of mine to this day. Dana Carter, he's out there, hopefully watching. He helped me out. He had enough faith in me to give me a shot. But started me off as a 4th grade teacher, and I went in thinking, okay, everyone's going to read at the 4th grade level, write at the 4th grade level. Math at the 4th grade level, and I was just blown away how more wrong I could have been. Just the spectrum, of talent levels or abilities or interests that you have with those kids. 35 kids my first year, and there was just all over the board. So that really blew me away. I had to recalibrate my thinking big time from there.
Well, and you said at the top of the show that you get to have your daughter this year in your classroom. And I know teachers, that's one thing that they either really look forward to is when their kid's old enough for them to have them, or they're very like, I don't want my child in my class. I can't have it. So how did you really want your daughter to be in your class? And then what has that been like for y'all's relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. I heard the same thing. So I would go around and ask all my teacher friends, so what about you and your kids? Did you ever have them in your class, and how did it work out? And I heard the same. I had teachers tell me, yes, I couldn't wait to have them in my class, and I fought to get them back in my class later on. I changed grade levels to get them in my class again. And then I had other teachers say, no, our personalities clash too much. It wouldn't have been a good look. So I was really excited to get my daughter in my class this year in 2nd grade. And my wheels are already turning to kind of look forward to 5th grade. Maybe I'll try it again because it'll be a completely different experience. But yeah, I started putting the wheels in motion a couple years ago. And then I changed schools and districts this past year. So it was my first year in the school, first year in the district. and I had my daughter in my class, and it was awesome. I got to see her in a totally different lens. I got to see her how she interacted with students, with kids on the playground, the cafeteria, other teachers. It was really eye-opening for me, and it really improved our relationship a lot. Just taking it to the next level, taking our school home, our school work home, and our home life back to school, and bouncing it back and forth. Trying not to call her by her little nicknames, so she tries to not to call me dad in class.
I was gonna say, is that difficult for her to not call you dad in class?
Yeah, once I found out I got the position, we started practicing last summer. So we would I would tell her like on a random Tuesday, okay, no daddies today. You can't call me daddy, and I can't call you Lolly. I can't call you all my little pet names for you. And we got to see how long we can go. So we did pretty well with it. She would call me daddy sometimes in class, but in second grade, I get that from other kids as well. So it's not too much of a difference.
I can definitely see that. Well, now we've got a whole different world we're living in with Corona and quarantine and staying home. What has been the biggest effect that's had on you and with your students?
Just trying to figure out where I can fill those gaps, because like we talked about earlier, there's a huge spectrum of ability levels in each grade, in each class. So I'm just trying to see where I can help out. Yesterday I was driving around. On Tuesday, I went and emptied out all their desks. And so yesterday, my whole family, my wife, my son, and I, and my daughter and I, we drove around and we dropped off on their doorsteps. We dropped off all their materials because they were really freaking out. They were like, we get to keep this stuff at the end of the year. And I started thinking like, man, they asked me about this all year long for 7 months, and now it's sitting in their desk still. Mm-hmm. So we drove around yesterday and dropped them off, and I was able to talk to some parents, and they were just asking me some questions. How do I address this? And would there be a time where we can, communicate with you and get some ideas on regrouping is huge in second grade, and they're having a hard time with that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I'm trying to dial back in. I send them a daily challenge every day through Dojo. Mm-hmm. So it's something really different. A couple of days ago, it was rewrite the lyrics to a song. Today it was write a love letter to a loved one, just practice writing, different things, building forts. And the big one we're planning on, I probably shouldn't let it slip, but we're going to do obstacle courses. So I'm gonna let my daughter design an obstacle course, and then we'll shoot a funny video of me just failing at it terribly.
See, and I think that's a great thing for educators who may be listening to hear, is that in these moments of this new world we're living in right now, it doesn't have to be so academically depth, because the parents can't always help. They're overwhelmed too. The kids are emotionally exhausted. And so just those little moments of levity to where you get everything is a learning experience, especially for kids at this age. And so, like you said, writing a letter to a loved one, recreating a song, building a fort, like those kind of things, you can have fun, and the parents can kind of like not have to be so, oh my gosh, I don't know how to help in these things. So I love that you share that. Well, David, go ahead.
No, sorry. I've gotten some good responses where the kids are waking up and looking forward to it. Like, what's my challenge today? And going back and forth. And I'm having a hard time. I'm the parent and the teacher. So I don't know how to push. Like a couple of days here, we've planned it out where I've kept the same exact schedule we had at school. We started with math. I sent her off to recess. I brought her back. We did PE. We went to lunch. So I tried to keep the same exact schedule to see how it worked. And then other days, I just let her be a kid and play video games. And she taught me how to play a video game last week. And it's been incredible that way as well.
And I love that you share that, because I think it's, schedules are important, but it's okay to know you can get off those schedules too. And so, and just, your family best. And so when it reaches those moments, that's when you do it. And so, my next question for you would be, you also have a son, and your son has some different challenges than most kids out there. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my son, Caleb, he's 12 years old. He has cerebral palsy. And I have to be honest with you, I didn't know that this Tell Your Story was available as a podcast. So since you invited me on, and I was so blown away, I searched it up, and I've just been going through episodes like crazy. So I heard the one with Dr. Lampkin with his cerebral palsy. Just loved it. I've known about his story for a little while now, but getting deeper into it was awesome for me. But my son Caleb, they consider him in 7th grade right now, even though the district he's in doesn't have a middle school program for his moderate to severe kind of issues. Right. So he's still in an elementary school setting, but we're looking on changing him over here pretty soon. He's my firstborn, so my wife and I talk a lot about how having him first and then my daughter second, it would have been a huge difference if it was the other way around, because we've seen kind of his challenges and what we've had to go through with him. And then where my daughter comes along, she's able to do so much more. Now that blows us away. It just gives us a different perspective as far as gratitude and appreciation, and just knowing that, we have someone relying on us at all times. So it makes us step our game up as well.
Now, I know with most kind of disabilities or trials that people have, when that there's a name attached to it, whether it's ADHD or cerebral palsy or any of that, it's different for every kid and it's different for every family. And that's why I think like talking about it is so important, so that people can hear that, don't have this movie mindset or the one person mindset you have. And so talk to me a little bit about what struggles your son has that is unique to his disability.
Well, he's on the other end of the spectrum than Dr. Lampkin, where he's not able to walk or talk or sit up straight on his own. So he's still in diapers at 12 years old. He has those kinds of challenges. He's G-tube fed, and we just went through that a couple years ago, where we placed a G-tube in his stomach, and he gets all of his nutrients to like a Pediasure formula kind of thing, and it goes directly into his stomach. When we're feeding him by mouth, we didn't know this, obviously, but for a while he was going down the wrong tube. So a lot of the food and the drinks we were giving him, even the medicine, was ending up in his lungs rather than his stomach. So this has been a huge help for us, because now he's getting all the nutrients he needs and he's getting all the medicine that he needs. But with that, he's putting on more weight. He's getting more awkward and longer. So just getting him in and out of cars, moving him in and out of bed, repositioning, that's our newest struggle, and trying to address that kind of stuff. But I mean, I'm beyond blessed, man. I look at, like I said yesterday, driving around to my kids' houses and seeing where they live. I know we have challenges, but I just feel like every parent has challenges, just different than others.
Well, and I love seeing the videos and photos you share of both of your kids, because there's so much joy in his face with the different things that you share, and I love that. And I feel like you give a glimpse into a world where it's not full of excuses, it's not full of complaints, it's real life, but you show that there's still joy to be had in those moments. And so I guess backing up a little bit, as a father, and it was your first time being a father, new father, when you and your wife found out that he had cerebral palsy, was it before he was born or after?
It was after. It was about 6 months in, and my wife had a difficult pregnancy, so he was born about 8 weeks early. He's tiny. He's 3.5 pounds when he was born. And just thinking something like that could operate as a functioning human, with a heart and lungs and breathing, and that was blowing my mind just by itself. But about 6 months in, the doctors were able to kind of put a name to it. And my parents were actually the ones who first started noticing that he wouldn't track the gaze as well. And I had a hard time. I had a really hard time for all the way up until probably he was 2 years old is when I started.
See, and that's what I was going to ask. As a parent, I'm sure that it's probably like different stages of emotion that you move through. And so, when you find out that he has cerebral palsy, what did that do to you as a father? And I know you mentioned 2 years old. So when did it get to a point where you were able to move on to a new stage of emotion?
Yeah, that's a great question. Man, this is bringing back some stuff for me now. So my wife did much better with it. So she was just focused on having the happiest Caleb that we could have. Whatever issues came along with it, she was fine with. My situation, on the other hand, I had to grieve. I wasn't getting the son that I signed up for, the son that I expected. So I was losing out on learning and teaching him how to play catch and teaching him how to ride a bike and going through sports. And I'm a big time sports guy, so all of those kinds of things. I had to grieve for that child, because he wasn't going to be there anymore. And it took me a while to kind of come around and accept things in a different way. I remember when I first heard about cerebral palsy, I was in a warehouse manager setting, and I just pulled it up online. And I remember just sitting in my office reading these things, and I could just tick them off. Like, yeah, Caleb does that. He does that. He does. So in my mind, it's looking more and more like, yeah, he has cerebral palsy, even though we didn't have that official diagnosis yet. And I just remember like losing all the color and my pit in my stomach, and I just started coming to the realization that way. But it still took me a long time
Yeah.
to get to the point where I really wanted to be the best dad and make him the happiest kid that he could be.
You know, and I think that's so powerful. And I've met so many different parents with all kinds of kids, and I think I hear that often of that same thing of needing to have that moment to grieve. And when I've talked to another parent, you know, I've got a friend who has a son with Down syndrome, and she was telling me that she said, you know, even today, there are some moments where I start to get in my head and the emotions start to come back, and then I have to recenter myself to go, I need to get that vision of my child out of my head and love them for who they are, and stop letting my mind go there. Do you find yourself dealing with that sometimes too?
Yeah, I do. And my wife and I, this, like I said, this has helped our relationship immensely. Just the communication piece where we're able to talk about these kinds of things. But
Right.
I'll get in my own head for sure. That's a good way of putting it. Where I feel like changing a diaper, and I think, well, other 12-year-old parents,
Right.
they don't have to go change diapers. So I get the little self pity or feeling bad about it, but you got to snap out of it really quick because the kid
Yeah.
needs you to
Yeah.
do a lot more for him than have self pity over changing diapers. So she's able to recenter me as well, and just trying to make him, like I said, as happy as he can be. And we try to do different things. He likes riding horses. He gets a huge kick out of reading books. He loves reading books, so it helps me keep my reading up. And like you said, if you can get a smile out of him,
Yeah.
it really does bring the joy out, and it's heartwarming for yourself. So people are always, his teachers, my parents, her parents, my daughter. We're always trying to find those little keywords to get a reaction out of them, a joyous reaction. And when you do it, there's no other feeling like it.
Well, so you have Caleb, and then you have another little daughter come around. And so, do you think there were things that you experienced with Caleb that made you a better father for your daughter?
Oh yeah, for sure. Just seeing, like I said, if the roles were reversed, if we had the typical child first and then a child with special needs later, it wouldn't have been the same experience.
Mhm.
Where we were just watching, my wife and I, we would watch my daughter, and she'd walk in the room and just grab a crayon or something, and then walk back to her bedroom, and we would freak out like, "Oh my gosh, did you see that? She
Yeah.
grabbed it! Oh my, that was amazing!" And it's like the littlest things that we would kind of miss out on. We were so over the moon about, because my son wasn't able to do those things. So it gave us a much greater appreciation for the smaller things.
Now, she's never known a life without Caleb in it. And so, what have you seen that, obviously, you know, when you've got an older sibling and then another sibling is born and there may be issues, they've had that life without that sibling in it, but she's only known Caleb as he is. And so, do you see a really cool, unique relationship with them two?
Oh yeah, for sure. We've seen, I mean, so many stories. We call her the little big sister because she's littler in age, but she's already bigger than him, in stature and height and weight and all those things. And
Uh-huh.
so we call her the little big sister, and she's able to help out so much. She'll read books to him, or she's already looking forward to the day where she can, drop him off at school and take him back and forth, and driving and all those things. We had Caleb a while back. This is years ago. She's 8 now, so it was probably 6 years ago when she was 2. And this gives you the mindset of a child, I guess. Her thing, she's never known a life without Caleb for sure, but she's never known a life without all these digital experiences either. So
Oh
we
yeah.
told her, well, we got to change brother. So she kneeled down next to him and she started swiping across his shirt like you would do on an iPad to change an iPad. We're watching like, what is she doing? Well, she's trying to change his shirt. And we're like, in her lifetime, there probably will be technology where you could just change clothes
Right, right.
but she was already ahead of the curve that way. So she's been amazing with him, and it helps keep her grounded as well, where she can see the different side of things, where everything isn't so easy as it comes to her.
I love that so much. And so, you know, we may have educators or families or parents who are listening to this conversation today who have not had an experience like you and your family have been able to have with growing together and growing through these things. And so, what do you wish people could know or understand when they see your family out and about, or when they hear this story? What's one thing you really want them to walk away with?
Well, I would just say that actions speak louder than words. I know that's a long time refrain. It's a age old saying, but it's just true. My wife and I, we pride ourselves on being active and getting things done because we found we can just sit around and talk about things and we can have great ideas, but unless we actually put those things in motion and get them done, it's just going to be words. We could talk about, oh, we need to feed Caleb, or we need to change him, or we need to get him ready for bed, but it's not going to happen unless we really do it. So just actions speak louder than words. I take that with me into my classroom. I can talk about doing a room transformation or an amazing lesson, or trying something that I learned from you guys. You know, Kids Deserve It, all these amazing books that we have out there. But unless we really do it, then it's just talk.
So, David, on your tough days, whether it's a tough educator day or a tough family day, how do you pull it together and not let those insecurities or those frustrations overtake you?
Oh man, I don't know. I think about that a lot. Like I try to keep a balance, and it's not easy. It really very rarely exists where there's a good balance between school and home and
Right.
dad and teacher. I mean, you know how it is to try to juggle all the different things. But I'm always pushing, pushing, pushing. I try to look at things in a positive or grateful way. I know it can always be worse. There's kids in Caleb's class that have it much worse than he does, so I try to keep that in mind as well. And then occasionally, not very often, but occasionally, I just try to take time and give myself some grace and just take it easy. Earlier this week, my back was killing me. I had a huge headache, and I just told my wife, I'm going to get Caleb ready for bed, and then I'm done. Like, I'm done for the night. I'm not going to be able to stay up and watch movies or do the dishes or get ready for tomorrow, whatever that's bringing. I'm just going to kind of crash out. So I got to give myself that opportunity every once in a while as well.
I think that's important to know too. I think, we know ourselves best. And so when you reach that point, you've got to be able to say, okay, I need to stop. I need to take some time for me right now. Like I just need to deal with that. And so I love that you said that. And so David, one question I always love to end all these conversations on, and we kind of talked a little bit about it earlier, but we'll close it out with this question again anyway. There's things that we hold dear to our belief system, to our hearts that are just part of who we are. And so for people listening today, what would be one thing that you wish more people knew or understood?
Oh, like I said, I've been listening to a lot of episodes, and I hear you ask that question a lot. So I've been trying to prepare myself for that. But I guess you never really know until you're sitting with the Todd Nesloney right there. Well, big thing for me is love languages and just knowing how other people receive love.
Yeah.
So I know that was a book, and my last principal actually recommended it to me, and I read it, and I did not expect to get what I got. Mine was words of affirmation. So when you approached me about this episode, that affirmed me. I was just blown away by that, and I'm bragging to everyone, and I'm telling my wife, and she's like, I don't really get it, but okay, I guess it's exciting for you. And hers was totally different. I thought I knew what hers was going to be, and hers was totally different. Hers is acts of service. So just knowing that she knows that mine is words of affirmation. So every once in a while, she'll kind of bolster my ego a little bit and just know that I'm going to receive that well. And I try to keep that in mind for her, just to do things around the house and little acts of service that I can help her out with. But if you know how other people can receive love, and if you can just take a tiny little step towards that, the littlest things can make the biggest difference.
I love that. And that is a beautiful way to end this conversation. Well, David, I have so loved following your journey, and I just think that you are such a positive light and doing so many great things. So thank you for agreeing to come on and share some of your story today.
Oh, no, thank you, Todd. It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate you asking me on.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you want to watch or listen, it's there. I hope today's conversation with David has inspired you to get out there and share your story, because every story matters.